Recently we've tried to beat Ratchet and Clank A Crack in Time on hardcore difficulty while only using the wrench. And that challenge was brutal. You should really see the video if you haven't already. And you guys seem to like it. I liked it, so I thought why not try the same thing in Tools of Destruction? I mean, how bad can it be, right? Well, there's a little more to it than just hammering away. There's no option to choose difficulty in this game, but don't you worry. This game has plenty of tricks up its sleeve. But first, let's talk about the differences between A Crack in Time and Tools of Destruction. The biggest difference is that the wrench behaves differently. See, when you hold R2 in A Crack in Time, Ratchet will keep moving forward at the same speed. So you can keep throwing your wrench without a penalty. Even while hoverbooting, which is great. In Tools of Destruction, however, when holding R2, Ratchet will bend down. You can still throw your wrench, luckily because otherwise this run would never be possible. But when you throw your wrench, you are locked in one place for a short period of time. And this does not sound so bad, right? Well, you'll get used to it, but this really slows you down, which is unfortunate. But the biggest downside to this mechanic is that Ratchet can no longer jump and throw his wrench. And that thought is terrifying, because in A Crack in Time there were several parts where jumping while throwing the wrench was essential. So going in, I'm not sure if this run is going to be possible or not, but I guess we'll find out. Two other major things in this game are about health. In A Crack in Time your nanotech can increase, bringing you to max. And the same applies in this game, only in this game it happens way more often. Also, when your nanotech increases, most enemies in your vision die. This can be helpful, but we cannot plan around this. So there is no way to use this for strategizing. The last thing is about weapon vendors. Obviously we won't buy weapons, we don't need them. But even when you enter this menu and just leave, your entire health box gets restored to max. But I thought that would not really be in the spirit of the rules, so I decided to only use this mechanic if it's absolutely necessary to progress with only the wrench. Which will be almost never. So now that we know what we're working with, let's do this. Can you beat Ratchet and Clank Tools of Destruction with only the wrench? We start our adventure on Kerwan. This part is pretty generic and really easy. I did die 2 times, but that was only because I wanted to speedrun this part and I was reckless. This part is just really easy. You can walk past most enemies, so why fight them? We get captured, escape and crash on planet Cobalia. This jungle is mostly tutorial, so again really easy. But then we make it here. And this is where our problems with the movement begin. We have to fight this monster, and the problem is that he is flying. If we had A Crack in Time mechanics, this would be easy. Just jump and throw the wrench. But like I said before, that's no option here. He does not fly so high, so usually we can hyperstrike and inflict damage. Sometimes we can throw our wrench and jump when it comes back. That way the wrench will be a little bit higher when it comes back, and in some cases, with that extra height, it will make the difference. This creature will attack us obviously. And since our nanotech isn't that high yet, you have to be careful. Don't get me wrong, this battle is not hard by any means, but it does represent our shortcomings in this run very well. The reason that this part is not difficult is because you can jump in the swamp, and if you jump out immediately, you won't take any damage. This battle would be way more risky if you would take damage from that. Anyway, let's continue to Stratus City. This is where I realized that I'm going to have to develop strategies. Multiple enemies will walk towards me, which I have to evade. I did notice that sometimes when throwing my wrench, I did no damage to shielded enemies. And this is going to be a problem in the entire run. You have to get behind them, but most times that's not possible. For now, not really a problem yet, so let's worry about that later. Right now, this enemy is a problem. He blocks most of our way and shoots a lot. How are we getting past him? I did die a few times and see what works and what doesn't. In the end I found out that running for it is the best strategy. When you get past him, immediately hide behind the left wall. He cannot hit you anymore and you can continue. But you are not safe yet, because another one will wait for you in the next door. It will maybe take you a few tries, but I would recommend to keep jumping left to right. This tank-like enemy does massive damage if it hits you, but it has to be on target, and he's a bit slow. So if you don't let him, you can just continue. We make our way through security and make it to the Hall of Knowledge. Now, I really don't know why they call it this. Most parts are underwater and there's one computer. And the water does not seem like it happened on accident. What's this knowledge part about? Please let me know. It's better to call this part the Hall of Devastation, because we are about to run into a wall. Enemies ambush us, not a big deal. It's mildly frustrating because there are shielded enemies. But if we plan this right, we can kill them while throwing the wrench to the right and then walk left, so the wrench does hit them sideways when it comes back. This is hard to do though, because when you strafe, the game automatically locks to the enemy's front. But when done again and again, you can do this. The real problem here are the flyers outside the window. The game won't continue even when there's a single enemy alive. But even though the window's cracked, there is an invisible wall there. And you cannot hit these enemies with your wrench. And there are only a few things that we can do. So my options would run out very fast. I did try a few things, but came to the conclusion that you have to use a weapon to kill those enemies. There's literally no other way. It really sucks, because this means that the run is over and it wasn't in my control. If it was my fault, then at least I had options, but right now, it's out of my control and I cannot do anything about this. Yeah, so let's answer the question, I guess. Can you beat Ratchet and Clank Tools of Destruction with only the wrench? I'm really sorry, but no. This random hallway just completely blocks us. But come on. We kill these enemies and we can still continue, right? Let's just see if there are other troublesome spots in this game. Quark asks us to participate in the Imperial Fight Festival. But before we do, we make our detour and collect the charge boots. This will speed up certain parts tremendously. The way to the Fight Festival itself is a bit difficult, but only when you don't pay attention, like I do sometimes. Most enemies are skippable, but running past them is not always safe. Anyway, let's not waste our time talking about how to get there. Let's talk about the fighting itself. First, we have to defeat 3 rounds of enemies. This took me a few tries because these enemies can be tricky. Not one by one, but when they team up, they use all different kinds of playstyles that you have to keep in mind. I would recommend to keep throwing your wrench, it's the most safe. Also give the shooters priority, because sometimes you are killing someone else and you get a hit from your back or from the side, which you obviously don't want. After a few times you'll get to face Crushto. Now Crushto is a very stupid boss battle. And that is because of the minigun on his arm. Shots are very inconsistently displayed and you really cannot predict where it's safe and not. The bullets fly very slow and in a weird pattern. When he uses this move, you cannot throw your wrench. Oh, and that's the only move you can use. If you were to use a regular strike or a hyper strike him, he will grab you and eat you alive. So that's no option. I think the best move Crushto uses is when he fires rockets. It's easy to take damage from this, but you can hit him most often. 2 other things that he can do is suck or blow air. And this just wastes your time. As the battle progresses, he will use this tactic more often. It will take a lot of time, but in the end, you will beat him. It's not so hard. So how are we doing so far? We did complete a few levels and it was actually kinda easy. But that pace will be picked up when we enter the Aperture space station. We land on the outer perimeter and find the smuggler who will lend us his escape pod to fly to the station itself. But the fucker wants Leviathan souls for that. And that is a big problem. We are going to fight the same monsters as before, but this time there is a risk of falling into oblivion. Again, this part would be okay with the crack in time mechanics, but nope. So here we are, on a small rock fighting a flying space monster. So how's this going to work? Well, technically this isn't going to work. And what I mean by that is this. The monster will keep much distance, so your wrench can never hit it. Once every several minutes he decides to fly directly towards you. In most cases he will bite you and you gain damage. This isn't so difficult to avoid, but it will certainly happen every now and then. But the important part is that he drops energy balls on my platform that deal damage. So not only do you have to wait for him to attack you, which takes a lot of time, you are also not safe. And over time, the damage adds up. And yeah, you do deal damage to him, but that's not so much. My estimate is that you have to do this for a little below an hour. And during this time, you cannot do something else, like I could in my Rayman 3 run. No, this entire time, you have to stay sharp. And that idea alone worries me. Because it is very likely that I lose my concentration after about 45 minutes, make a few mistakes in a row, and I have to start all over. And you know, if it was one monster I would consider doing this, but you need to kill 3 monsters. And that is just a big waste of time. I really am not going to spend 3 hours throwing a wrench at inconvenient times to kill a monster who can fly. And you could think, hey, isn't your channel built around such tedious challenges? No, not exactly. Yes, sometimes I do weird obscure challenges that are obviously not meant to play like that in a certain game. But I do like to strategize. Limiting key components of a game and figuring out various things that I can do to still progress with that handicap. This part has nothing to do with strategizing. It's just dumb. So, yeah. I did use weapons here. I hope you understand why. And to make that even more clear, the next section will prove what I mean. We are inside the Aperture space station now, and we have to fight these little droids. They look like the one-hit KO enemies that each Ratchet and Clank game has. But they aren't. They are 4 to 5 hit KOs. And they will always follow you. So you have to be very careful. Luckily, in the first hallway there are only 4, which means you can practice with them. I did die a few times, but I did learn how to move. My advice is to make sure that you have much distance in your back to cover while fighting them. That way you can always walk away if you want. But the next problem is this turret. He has a 360-degree spinning ability, which sucks. Otherwise, the charge boost can make sure I get behind them and I can bash away. Also, you cannot stand on the turret, because that will deal damage too. And he shoots kinda fast and does big damage. The door behind him will only open when the turret is destroyed. There is a big upside. When you are not in his vision, it will take him a few seconds, but then he will hide in the floor. And that's what we're gonna use. We hide behind the wall on the right side. Wait until he is done shooting and he will go underground. Then run for it and attack. That is going to take some time, but it will work and it's the safest way. Mostly I went for one hyperstrike, then ran back to cover and tried the same thing all over again. But you could play it risky. You could go for 2 hyperstrikes before hiding. I would sometimes do this, and you can, but the risk of getting hit is just a lot higher. But that is up to you. It will just take time and you will get past this. So then we get to this room and the droids from before spawn in again. And there are many this time. They stick together and team up on you. This is really hard. And the main reason for that is because there is really not much space for you to move in. And every time you die, you have to go back to the beginning. But with the right strategy you will make it. You will just have to run in circles, then every now and then turn around, throw your wrench and keep running for it again. And we make it right here. Right now there are 2 turrets at the same time. I should mention the turret on the lower platform, which did not work in my game. I don't know why. maybe a glitch or something, but for me at least, this platform was safe. On the lower platform, you are safe from the 2 turrets up there. But when you approach, they will open fire and you will not have enough time to make it back to the lower platform. But if you run up to them, hyperstrike once and jump over the rocks into the water, they can never hit you. So you are going to run in circles until you've killed them. Nice strategy. After that there's also this turret here, below the stairs, but he is skippable. One more enemy until my last checkpoint. The lasers in the door right here. Be aware that if I were to die, I have to restart the entire station so far again. Which is what I don't want, obviously. I panicked because I did not want to do everything again. Fighting so many turrets just takes very long. But in my panic, I did hit the lasers. And I'm sweating. But I made it. On 1 health. Whew! That was a relief. Luckily we got a checkpoint. Because with 1 or 2 turrets in every hallway, you will get tired of them pretty quick. But what about 8 turrets in the same room? That is what's next. How the hell am I going to do this? The strategy here is to use stairs and you have to duck. You run up to them and attack them, and just when they are about to fire, you will run back and hide on the stairs where they are unable to hit you. This will also take some time, but this strategy is very effective. You can also decide to just jump over the railing. And when we make it, there's 1 more turret remaining in this hallway. Easy, right? Well, I tried to run past it, but the door did not open. So I tried to hyperstrike him. I couldn't seem to hit him. I've only tried a few times and there was no way. Hyperstriking will only deal damage to the ground, unfortunately. And having said that, on top of the turret, so from our perspective below, there are also lasers who deal damage to me. So, yeah, I've just spent much time to slowly but surely make my way here, only to find out that this 1 turret requires weapons. Before that, I did try to use a Grooviton, which would make the turret dance. But even then, you cannot damage it. So unfortunately, we are using weapons again. After that, there will be a few rooms with turrets. But the strategy we use is consistently effective, which is great. It does take time, but oh well. What I will talk about is the final room. Here, almost nothing is safe. There are turrets hidden in the ground almost everywhere. This room is really a test of your patience. I would recommend to explore the right side first. That's a lot safer because the turrets on the left are much farther away. The trick here is to find safe zones. On the stairs, for example, or in this corner. You continuously run up to turrets, hyperstrike them and run for it. In my run, it was a risk because I was at 3 health, but I also found a safe place in the corner right here. And it paid off big time, increasing my nanotech and bringing me to max. When that turret is destroyed, your best bet is to make it to the middle area. When the turrets here start firing, jump on a platform that is higher than they are. They cannot fire so high, so you are safe. If you've made it to the middle, make your way up again on the other side and take out the turrets there from above. That is way easier than if you would have started this room going left instead of right. After that, the lasers on the climbing wall disappear and you are finally out of the Aperture space station. Thank God. Oh, speaking about tedious parts, we make it to planet Ardolis. Or I think this is Ardolis, but whatever. There's a pirate stronghold here. And the part worth mentioning is this room. A few waves of enemies come for you and you have to survive. But as I come to know, pirates with shields are the worst enemy type in the game for this run. You cannot hit them from the front. And obviously they face towards me. So the strategy here will be very stupid. But your only reliable one. We are going to let the shooters in front live and just walk up and down this room. That way, every time we walk to the far side, the shielded enemies expose their backs to the shooters. And they do take damage from that. It just takes a really long time. But if you keep doing this, eventually they will die from the bullets. You also cannot run past them because this door will only open when all enemies are cleared in this room. But if you stick with the strat, eventually it's over and you can kill the shooters, right? Ha, pranked, because more shielded enemies will come through the door once that opens. Luckily, also a shooter spawns in here, so you can start the entire challenge all over again. But 2 times is enough, right? I've wasted enough time. No, obviously! There is a third group right outside of the compound. Normally I will tell you if I recommend a run at the end of a video. But I feel like this is a great opportunity to mention this. I would never, in my right mind, recommend anyone a wrench-only challenge in Tools of Destruction. Not only is it extremely easy most of the time, other times it's extremely boring and especially frustrating. Like, yeah, there's some strategy, but in most troublesome spots, the strategies that you have to rely on are the ones where you have to do the most stupid things that waste your time. And it is just not fun anymore. And to make my point, I will showcase the next world, Raiken 5. There are many enemies in this part. And that sounds challenging, but no! Some of them are even one-hit KOs with a Hyper Strike. The reason why it's so easy is because enemies will most of the time lock onto Kronk and Zephyr, and you can kill them without having any risk of taking damage yourself. On top of that, when you kill so many enemies, your nanotech will undoubtedly increase once or twice, bringing you to max. I did almost die one time, but that was because I got reckless and tried to speedrun this. Okay, don't get me wrong, this part is really fun. Because you feel like a super soldier and it's the most combat in the game. I just want to say that this run is not hard by any means, which I'm very used to on this channel. The last section is just funny. You have to destroy turrets, but it's way too dangerous to kill them yourself. Just wait and evade their shots until Kronk and Zephyr will take them out. Easy, right? Well, we want to increase the difficulty, so I should quickly mention Sargasso and these beasts. They can be quite hard because they have a lot of health and they will bite you if you get too close to them. The last one in the cave is especially difficult, because there are flying bugs that also shoot as well. I've tried a few strategies, like getting behind the beast, but that won't work because he will bite you to death. The best strategy here is to keep moving all the time, so you are hard to hit. And speaking about strategy, we have to talk about returning to the Imperial Fight Festival. We have to fight 5 waves of enemies. Not a problem. What is really interesting is the fight against Zorthon, the energy creature. He has no legs. That's a problem because in order to inflict damage, we have to hit his torso, which is way above our head. Just wrenching or hyperstriking is no option because he zaps you upon contact. Furthermore, his attacks are obnoxious as well. For example, he can shoot energy balls, and when he does this, it's not a good idea to be around him. He can also spin like a tornado. You have to run away, but he is faster than your regular sprint and you will take damage. That is if you don't use the helipack, obviously. But you don't want to get too far, because after this tornado ability, he will be confused for like 2 seconds and you can get a hit in. So after a few tries, I thought that this battle would never be possible while only using the wrench. But because he gets confused for like 2 seconds, I did realize that it is in fact possible to do damage to him with only the wrench. And that got me worried. There wasn't a single run so far where I got Zorthon below 90% lives. I've tried a few times and in the end I set myself to the fact that this was going to take hours to defeat Zorthon. But what if I told you you were wrong? Let's try again. We battle Zorthon, attack him with a wrench throw, but we take damage. So this run is over, we don't want to take damage so quickly. So I jump in the lava and without really paying attention, I get stuck on these rocks. And Zorthon follows me, jumps into the lava and kills himself. What?
How? Why? What is this AI? But then I thought, wow, I got really lucky. So I retried the challenge. There's no way that this is a strategy, right? But this is my next attempt. It is! It is consistent! When standing on this rock, Zorthon will jump into the lava 100% of the time. I did try this like 5 to 6 times, and every time he will kill himself. I was mind blown. So, did I just figure something out? I looked up how speedrunners complete this part, and they are using a similar strategy to defeat him. So, completely unintentional, I figured out a pro speedrunner strat. Wow, this mistake saved me hours. Okay, so now let's talk about our problems at the Creely Comet. At first we fight this guy, and we abuse the fact that he is right-handed. When you stand on this ledge, which is located right behind him, his bombs cannot hit you. But when you throw your wrench, you absolutely can hit him. But don't worry, he will get his revenge. This part is not really that hard. But the next part is, there are 2 pirates on turrets right here. And it is prominent that you make them a priority because they keep firing big bombs that will drain your life. I would recommend to first kill the right one, then go for the left. Be aware that there are also shielded pirates coming. In one run I let the left turret live and exposed the backs of the shielded enemies to the turret. But for some reason they did not take damage from that. The charge boots are very handy here because you can traverse through the map much faster. There's also a turret right here that you have to make a priority. It took me like half an hour, but in the end I found a golden ticket for the shielded guys. All the way in the camp right here. There is some sort of bridge here, but for some reason the shielded pirates have a hard time walking up on it. When they do, they walk to the side and eventually they will just run into the ravine. Easy game, easy life. Until we make it right here and this guy comes for our revenge. And that is a really big problem. Because he is higher than you are. So everyone can see that our only solution is the rock on the right side. The only thing we can do here is to throw our wrench and jump off when it comes back. It is really inconsistent. But you can hit him under the perfect circumstances. And you have to jump, not only to have any chance of hitting him, but also to avoid the bombs he throws very frequently. It happened many times that I would just fall off. But big deal, right? Just try again. No, the last checkpoint is right before the turrets I mentioned earlier. So you would have to redo everything again every time you make a quick mistake. I did notice that this guy spins around slightly. So he does adjust his position to where you are. And that is not practical for us. Because that means in most times it's incredibly unlikely that you get a hit in. I got stuck in this part for over an hour. And this is the only part in the run where I deem it necessary to go back to a vendor and get all your lives back. But even then, this battle is really difficult. Because the big problem is falling off the cliff, which happens a lot. Your options are just too limited. So after like an hour and a half, I got sick of the constant fear of falling into the ravine when battling this dude. And I looked for other options. In the end, you need to make it to the other side of him. But when you defeat him, the geolaser activates and you can cut down the ice on the right side, and via those platforms you can make it across. But I thought, is it really necessary to cut the ice? I stood on the rock and jumped all the way around the ice and tried to make it on the platform. I was unsuccessful, but I did get pretty close. So I tried again and yeah, it is possible. You don't actually have to kill this dude at all. Whew, about 90 minutes wasted, but luckily I can continue. There really is only one thing to say about the escape out of Zorthon prison. Talwyn randomly wants to split up here. Good plan, I guess. What?
but it doesn't matter so much, since most enemies are skippable. But these enemies aren't. And the real problem is their position. They fly on the edge of my platform. The only way to do damage to them is if I hyperstrike them. But obviously, that is very risky, because you frequently fall off. It's a lot of trial and error. Sometimes it's best to wait out what the enemies are going to do. They will change location, but only to other places on the end of my platform. Keep in mind that there are 5 waves. So yeah, this part is a bit difficult and a test of how brave you are to attack. I beat this in just under half an hour. Could be worse, right? And the next stop is Curtius City. The beginning is a bit difficult because there are a lot of pirates with shields, but you get through. But the one battle we have to talk about is the battle against this robot. We start on the grind rail, which is really not hard at all. And in the end, it leads us to this platform, which is upside down. But the boss is kinda far away. I tried throwing my wrench, but it wouldn't work. I would never be able to make it that far. The one attack he keeps on using is an attack where he punches my platform. So I try to hit his hand while he does this. But I tried over and over and over, and I was never able to get a hit in once. This is probably due to 2 things. The first one is the energy wave that unleashes, and the second is that you are meant to hit his head, torso or the legs. So it seemed like this wasn't happening with the wrench. I would die again and again, very quick. The spawn point is not ideal, it's before the grind rail. So every time we die, we have to redo that part again too. But okay, I was like, what kind of boss battle is this? Why is it upside down? That makes no sense, right? It's been a long time since I've beaten this boss and I don't really remember how everything works. Then I thought, wait, isn't it so that this boss is first played upside down and then normal? What if I just jump down now? And you know what? That works. Now you can come way closer to him. There are a few things that he can do. He can still do the punch attack, but he can also shoot rockets and he can spawn in Curtius. It is very tempting to keep hyperstriking him, but I would highly vote against that. See, if you touch him, you die. For some reason. But if we keep running to the right, he will have to turn every now and then. And when he does so, and spawns in Curtius, they will get insta-killed to this boss too. As a matter of fact, in my entire successful run, I only killed 1 or 2 Curtius myself. But fighting such a big robot with only the wrench will take a long time, right? Well, not really actually. I think my successful attempt took me like, 12 minutes? It actually does fairly decent damage. So if you just keep on running to the right and throw your wrench, it will be game over for him. Captain Slag steals the Dimensionator and we are going to steal it back at the Oobleck Passage. And this level is awful. It's not Vorsalon levels of difficult, remember the Crack in Time run, but it's frustrating. We make our way through the pirates and fight this boss again. But see, he's simply not difficult. The reason why the last one on the Creely Comet was so difficult is because we couldn't reach him. But with this guy, we can, so we make quick work of them. But shortly after that, he will get his revenge. He must have figured out that his standing strategy didn't work, so he will attack us again while hanging. And I can't talk in much detail about this part, but that would just waste time. The short answer is, we are never going to be able to do damage to him. So we have to kill him with weapons. I did try something with helipods, not really sure what my idea there was, but even they weren't able to reach him. So, yeah. Run failed again. And there is nothing I can do about it. That sucks. But what would suck even more is this part. Oh man. Really, I am very okay with difficult parts that require skill. But this is just bullshit. There is no skill to be used here. As you can see, We are on a flying ship and another ship flies right beside us to bomb us. It's your job to take out the cannons. At first I thought that it would never be possible to hit them because there's a small ledge there. Well, as I come to know, you can hit them, but it's very obscure. Damage-wise, it's not that hard. I believe every cannon is like a, 5 hit KO? That's not so bad, right? But the real difficulty here is not the pirates, not the bombs, not dealing damage, but actually standing on the ledge itself. Really, it's very hard. I will just play a series of clips where I died because I fell off the ship. It's very precise work. Most times I respawn, wait until the cutscene ends, which takes a lot of seconds, walk up to the ledge, immediately jump off, and I have to try again. I also noticed that the right ledge is way harder to stand on than the middle or the left one. So in most of my runs I tried the right side first and died, and died, and died, and died. Oh, and I died? Oh my god! This is just stupid. But every now and then I was able to stand on the ledge. But you have to know that you can never get 5 hits in before the bombs of the cannons reach you. And if you don't jump away in time, they will blast you forward and you will fall off again. I kept on losing. For your information, I did try this for half an hour and after that I thought there's no way to do this with the wrench. But then my nanotech increased, disabling the cannons. That's perfect. Whew, it was very lucky. And we kill some pirates and... Oh, come on! Another one? Ah, why? So we have to attack this one as well. And literally my first attempt of jumping onto the ledge, I fall off again, making me start again. See, this is why I wouldn't recommend this run. The run itself is only hard in a few instances. The rest is just... shit. Really? Like who the fuck would in their right mind try this for over 2 hours? Well, yeah, me obviously, because I was committed at this point. And there is a theoretical way of completing it. So I will. But I cannot imagine that anyone would watch this and think, yes, I would very much like to try this. It's just boring. But when I tried more and more and more, I found 3 specific spots that would have a higher success rate for me. So I tried those spots for like 100 times. And I was noticeably improving my rates. But as you know, there's also a second ship which is harder for one reason. Some cannons are higher than they were previously. And I hate to break it to you, this isn't even the final ship. No, there will be 5. In my successful run, yes, luckily there was one finally, after a little over 2 hours of doing this shit, I got very nervous on ship number 4. I thought I was done, but a 5th ship came along. And I'm sitting here full of disbelief. Why are there so many? But I kept my focus and I did it. There was a lot of luck involved. And our ship flew up to its docking station. And man, was I glad to see that. Whew. So, we fight Captain Slag, but it's really easy. I maybe died 4 to 5 times, but after that I knew how to avoid him. Most of the times avoiding him is really easy and not even worth mentioning. So the real boss was this fucker and a few cannons. But speaking of difficult, we launched an assault on planet Repor. And I was looking forward to this part for quite a while. Because there are lots of enemies and even worse, we have to kill giant tanks now. In my first run I decided to just go for it. And you know what? Again, it's really easy. I will even go as far as to say that on the tanks, my wrench is their weak point. Because at a distance, they can shoot way more aggressive. When standing so close to them, the only thing they can do is to slam in on the ground and create a shockwave. But we just jump over that. I was expecting and hoping for a challenge, but nope, not right here. A little bit later,
tanks with some form of golden armor will attack us. But I don't get it. Maybe they are supposed to be harder to kill, but they are actually not. See, when they slam down, they cannot make a shockwave. So it is in fact really hard to even take damage from them. Okay, but back to this level. The reason why this is so easy is because Talwyn, Kronk and Zephyr are targets for the enemies as well. An enemy pushed me back once, throwing me off the map. But my second run was actually my successful one. Such a bummer. It does get a little bit harder in the next part with the Crackmites on loose, but that was to be expected when we are nearing the end of the game. I mean, the strategy is simple, just hyperstrike them as much as possible. They will come in a stun lock and they will not hit you most of the time. It's not hard, only slightly more challenging. And yeah, you have heard me blab about the difficulty level. Maybe I'm just used to the hardcore difficulty on a crack in time. Anyway, just know that I really did like to do this run. It's just that this run gets frustrating for the wrong reasons. But it wouldn't do this run justice if we did not finish this with a big ending boss. And we have. We are defeating Tachyon, who is really kinda difficult. So as you can see, Tachyon is on a slightly higher platform. Regular players wouldn't even notice this, but our dear friend the wrench does not like that. That makes Tachyon hard to hit sometimes when throwing the wrench. He will shoot lasers from his arms and make the bombs follow you. We can damage him, but we would take much damage in the process ourselves, which is what we don't want. So we run away most of the time, but I did notice when I did this that his health bar did also drop, even when I did nothing. Now why is that? Ah, because Kronk, Zephyr and Talwyn also attack Tachyon. So yeah, this is a strat. I tested and came up with a few ideas. I'm usually a way bigger fan of the helipack, but I would recommend switching to the thruster pack for this. This allows us to move just a little bit faster over the battlefield. That way, the bomb droids will have a hard time catching up to us. Sometimes one or two takes shortcuts and slip through their lineup, but if we keep on thrusting away for like 5 minutes, eventually my teammates will have done enough damage. That means that Tachyon will create a wormhole and we have to fight him on a platform in space. And now we don't have teammates anymore, and it's up to us. What makes this part difficult is that the battlefield is not a straight plateau. We are going to throw our wrench obviously for like 100 times, but sometimes the wrench gets stuck on a rock. Tachyon will still spawn in small bomb droids who follow you, but he will also create shockwaves on the ground and throw asteroids onto you. With the droids, I would recommend to run away and throw your wrench to them. This is not so hard, just be aware that when you take damage, you will get punched around. That did push me off the platform twice and I had to restart. Now where it gets interesting is that from a certain point, he will get much more aggressive. Tachyon will shoot many rockets and it's very hard to evade them all. On top of that, he will shoot a big death ray that won't even stop when you get hit by it. And I have no idea what the developers of the game wanted with this attack. Are you meant to take a lot of damage per death ray? Because you really cannot do so much. You have to just keep jumping away and hope for the best. After that you will have a short window to attack him before he does the same thing again. And you have to just go for it. So after a few runs I tried as hard as I could to make it to this spot without having lost any lives. And that will give me enough breathing room for when he unleashes this attack. In the end, I did it. And it only took me like 45 minutes. So reasonable, I think. We take the Dimensionator, send Tachyon to the Crackmite dimension, and we have officially beaten Ratchet and Clank Tools of Destruction with only the wrench. Or you know, sort of. I've already explained thoroughly why I don't recommend this run. Yeah, it's fun at times, but most roadblocks are frustrating things that require no strategy or are sometimes not even doable while using only the wrench. So no, you cannot beat Tools of Destruction while only using the wrench, but I would say that this run was close enough.
I really had fun in this run, but I do usually prefer runs that are way harder and require much more strategy. I'm not really sure what I will do next though. So if you have any suggestions for difficult runs, feel free to let me know in the comments. Just know that I usually play older games for the PS3. This has been yet another obscure video game run, so until next time, I'd say, take care.